Hey guys, today I'm just going to go through my process of how I made this Razorback Whiptail creature. Going to go through like the sculpting procedures I did for it and the techniques I used to make the scales and stuff like that. Mostly, I think we're mostly focusing on scales and stuff in this video. So here I'm using a new brush. Let me just check the name of it. It's amazing. It's the G.I.O. Soft Forms by Pablo Manzio Gomez. I'll send the link in my description. It's free. It's amazing. It's like replaces the damn standard brush basically. So I've been using that a lot. It kind of like pinches around and also cuts in rather than damn standard just cutting in. So it like pillows around what you're doing too. So I'm using that to make all the scales. Actually, I replaced that with damn standard this entire project. I didn't use damn standard once actually. This was mostly just a thing to test out the brush, and I got really carried away with it, and just ended up making a full dragon with UVs and everything like that. So I was having a lot of fun with it. I also used thick skin here. You can see I'm using that here. So that's the little new feature on the new ZBrushes. Thick skin. You can set your thick skin like radius to a certain like level, so it basically inflates your mesh, and then when you paint on with clay tubes or whatever, it'll just like pull it out to that exact height and no more, no less. Oh, I will go less if you want, but no more. So that's working really well. I've used different techniques in the past for making other creatures and dragons. Just wanted to do more of a by hand approach. I've used like the Mari method with like displacement maps and alphas and stuff like that. And then I've also used the masking method, which is actually maybe cleaner than this method. So that's masking with an alpha. It takes a little bit longer, and then you're just like pulling out directly from that alpha. That works well too, but this one I wanted to have like a little bit more of like a natural kind of flow to it. The alpha method is very, very structured and like laid out, but that's good for certain things like really specific scale patterns. That's good for. This one I'm going for specific, but then also a little bit sporadic too. So mixing up the both of them. These little ones here, honestly, you can probably do those ones in Mari too, but I was just having fun just using this brush, so I did them by hand. And that's okay. But yeah, just continuing on, placing teeth and stuff like that. Decided to give them a double row of teeth here, which is cool. The tongue, yeah, just like a nice weird tongue. Yeah, moray eels have moray eels have two jaws, which is always fascinated me. So I wanted to give them kind of like that kind of look. And then also referencing vampire fish too, they have some really interesting teeth going on there. And lingcod as well. Lingcod have like a bunch of rows of teeth. Not like moray eels. Moray eels have like two jaws, and yeah. Lingcod have basically like just like a row, like rows and rows and rows of teeth, like sharks do, kind of. Check it out if you haven't seen what they look like. Maybe I'll try to add a photo here actually. But just going through again using that same brush, just kind of trying to figure out the scale patterns, remembering that like, you know, scale, when you look at scales and you really start studying them, they're positioned in a way for a reason. The creature moves, and when it moves, the scales need to follow that. Like think about like skin wrinkles on an elephant. Scales essentially follow the same patterns as skin wrinkles do. So all these wrinkles here, you'll see me plotting out the wrinkles first. That's where the main wrinkles, the tension, and the compression wrinkles will go, and then the scales will actually form in between those things, or vice versa. I think like probably scales form first, and then wrinkles start forming around where those hardened scales are. But that will give you a creature that looks legitimate and looks like it actually can move and stuff like that, rather than like scales that aren't like, you know, well thought out. But yeah, if you look at crocodiles, like I'm referencing crocodiles here a lot, obviously. And their scale patterns are very distinct and very like, they'll have those big scales in the middle, and then they'll have like shooting off those, they'll have like the small ones, which is what I'm doing here. So the big scales in the middle, and then shooting off, they get like half the size, and then sometimes even go a little bit less than that. So I'm trying to like hold out ridges with those bigger scales. And I had a cool idea. I was gonna try to follow anatomy with my scales. So I'm gonna blot out the wrinkles first, and then holding out with the anatomy, like with the tricep and the deltoid and the bicep, like trying to really like have that, you know, be like congruent with one another, so the scales will follow with those muscles, which is not usually how it is in the animal kingdom. I just wanted to go a little bit further and just do something weird. Yeah, I think I ended up redoing this chest part up there. Maybe I did, maybe I didn't. I kind of feel like they were too slanted. But yeah, keeping in mind that the scales aren't just straight across, right? They're flowing up, flowing down, and I've noticed that a lot of reptiles, especially crocodiles, look at crocodiles' arms, their scales will point downwards at the end of them. So like, it's like a diamond almost. I mean, it's a square, but it's a diamond because it's positioned straight, like kind of like this, more on an angle, and so you're getting that the peak on the end of it makes it look like more like a diamond shape, which I'm doing on the bicep here. Kind of, you know, it's because of those angles are following the flow of anatomy and following the way that the thing wrinkle or bends and the wrinkles form. So again, with the inner elbow here, like the wrinkles are going to form a lot when he's bending his arm over and over again, right? So kind of trying to keep that in mind. I'm following brachioradialis right now with the wrinkles and the scales, just trying to keep that in mind. Really, honestly, just when I'm sculpting stuff like this, I'm really trying to just focus on like, okay, where would this wrinkle go? Like, why would it look like this? What's going on with it? You know, trying to figure out a way to make this thing look legitimate rather than just like, oh, okay, you use like texture XYZ and then threw it on Mari or whatever, which is easy to do and hard to do properly, but like, yeah, trying to really just like think about this creature and how it moves and stuff like that. Yeah, just again, using that same soft forms brush by Geo, it's just incredible. Definitely download that brush and try it out. So, yeah, I'm just going to basically continue forward with that stuff. I'll add some of the pictures in here for the stuff I'm referencing. I think that'd be a good idea. Again, just mainly crocodiles for this stuff. Crocodiles and alligators. So now I'm just like pillowing them out, just using clay tubes or clay buildup or whatever. I actually can't remember which one I use. Which one do I use? Clay buildup, not clay tubes. Yeah, I just use basically 3 brushes. Clay buildup, move tool. I use move tool so much. Like for all my blocking out, I basically just use move tool and clay buildup. I use, well, now I don't use damn standard. I use Geo's brush, the soft forms brush. Yeah, it's amazing, so good. And then I use my scale brush that I developed. I didn't use that much in this one. I did a little bit on the face. You'll maybe see later on. I ended up having a ZBrush crash and I lost a little bit of the work I did of the recordings, but oh well. Yeah, again, this stuff, I took a little cheat code there with like the alphas, and then I'm like, I gotta try to do it by hand again. Now that's where it gets interesting. Okay, so I'm masking out the bottoms of the scales, and I'm gonna pull them over. So I'm gonna inverse that mask and then pull them over so they overhang, one by one. This took a long time. This was like days of work. I did the arm and I was like, oh God. I was like, okay, it looks good. Like my idea worked, but this is gonna take me so long. Like you gotta loop around each scale nice and cleanly, then you gotta pull it out, then you do the same for, 1,000 scales on the arm. I think the arm took 10 hours. And then I'm like, oh God, I got the head and the face and the body and the neck. Like the neck has so many small scales too. I'm like, oh Jesus. But it's worth it. I had so much fun doing it. It's very meditative doing this stuff. So sometimes when you're sculpting something and you have an idea and you're like, oh, it's getting so long. Sometimes you'll be like, oh, you know what? Just do it. It's gonna look way better. Like when I was making this character to begin with, I think I posted a photo on my Instagram of me working on it before, and I was like, oh, I decided to make it like small scales, and I just used like the quick alphas and shit like that and did like little small scales, and I'm like, whatever, it looked good, it looked fine, but like it wasn't awesome. And then I was like, yeah, I need to put crocodile scales on it. It'd be super cool. I'm happy I did. Yeah, just going forward more hands, sculpting those, figuring that out, just kind of holding out some areas there. Yeah, looking at bird feet for these ones, ostriches and stuff. Good reference there. And then again, the wrinkles, trying to figure out where those go. So this guy's got webbed feet. He's probably in and out of the water type thing. And then, yeah, again, really trying to think about where this hand bends and where those wrinkles go. If you look at our hands, we have those wrinkles there for a reason. And everyone's got slightly different wrinkles on their hands. So depending on how you use your hand and your anatomy setup and everything like that, your wrinkles will be different. Again, your wrinkles are a product of the way that you move your body. And just the way that you move your thumb over and over and over and over again will eventually have a weak point where that wrinkle forms. So I'm just trying to think that, keep that in mind and consider that when I'm making this stuff. Again, took a little bit of shortcuts there. I used a couple alphas on the hand just to give it a more of a natural kind of sporadic look, the calloused and stuff like that. And then back to the masking, throwing that shit on there. Oh my god. Yeah, it took so long. I wasn't even done the arm yet. This is like probably 10 hours in. And I was like, oh god, come on. This is gonna take me fucking ages. Yeah. Pulling each one out. Yeah, the hands ended up turning out pretty good. Sorry, this is a little bit fast here, but just masking out each one individually, pulling it out, making sure it looks good. And the annoying part is you got to be right on that edge with the mask. If you go too far, then it pulls over in the incorrect way. And you got to pull it out, and then you got to. So I'm using Move Tool for the pulling out, by the way. You got to pull it out, and you got to make it sure from the side angle that it's not too high up or too low down. It's got to be sitting kind of flush over top of it, right? Yeah, I've used this technique for a lot of creatures in the past for movies and stuff like that. And it is really good. It just takes some time. But luckily, when you're working in movies, you do have a lot of time to work on creatures, which is nice. For TV shows, the lower budget ones usually don't have that much time. But I've still done this technique in the past for some of them where it's like, fine, I'll just work on a weekend and get it done. Honestly, getting more and more away from alphas in Zbrush. When someone uses a lot of alphas, you can tell. When someone does it like this, people are like, how'd you do that? You know what I mean? So it's like, well, you did it by hand and it sucked. You did it by hand and it blew. I think you get really good results doing it by hand. However, you do have to consider so much more. When you're using alphas, you don't have to consider a lot of flow. You can just kind of drag them on. With these ones, you got to consider the flow of it, right? Now I'm trying to figure out the back. Where are these scales going to go? How is the lat going to move? How is the arm going to move against the lats? You know, the shoulder blades. Okay, I figured out I'm going to put a big ridge of scales on the shoulder blades to hold those out. So I'm kind of drawing my lines on first, if you can see that, like my wrinkles first, my flow patterns, and then filling them in, which gives you a good base and a good like groundwork to put the scales in. Yeah, again, I was like, at this point I'm just like, oh man, I just want to be done. So funny. And when I'm done this stuff, like I do all the block-ins or whatever, and I put all the scales in, I'm still not done. I gotta do the masking then, right? Yeah. So there I'm just masking the tips of those scales and pulling them out. Yep. I think I ended up doing these again because I was like, oh, they're looking too strong. So I had a morph target saved. That's another thing I'll talk about. Always, when you're doing scales or anything like that, have a morph target saved. Before you do the scales. So here I'm trying out a little technique here with getting some free kind of scales in the body. And I think it ended up working a little bit. Yeah, see, I'm trying to be lazy. I'm like, do I use it on the legs? Watch, and I think I do go through quite a bit. I'm like, yeah, I'll do it all on the backs of the legs. It'll save me some time. No, I didn't do that. I'm trying to be lazy. Look at me. I am lazy on the stomach, I think. I do use them on the stomach. So I blend these guys into those other scales. Because I did want those, the ribs and everything like that to have really fine scales there. I didn't want them to be that pronounced. Because I did want to kind of draw attention to certain areas. And I didn't really like the way that those ribs looked. They poke out in that way. And poking against like the serratus. Yeah, I liked that. The obliques and stuff, so. So yeah, really considering where those wrinkles go. I mean, nothing really much to talk about here. Well, there we go. We got some. Okay, and I have another idea here. I'm like, okay, I'm actually going to make those serratus and the obliques where they thread into each other. I'm going to try to make those actual scales. Like some big actual scales. I'm like, maybe that would happen in evolution. Who knows? Maybe not. But, yeah, I thought it was kind of a cool look. So I hadn't really seen it done before. And the animals aren't really like that. So I was trying it out. And I think I ended up going with it. It looks cool. Just because I wanted to have that. I didn't want to lose that, and I just, you know, if I was following all the other anatomy with the scales, like the arm, I'd followed very well. So I was like, yeah, you know, maybe I would put that on there. Yeah, now we're doing the legs, so following each muscle group, right? So that line is going to cut out where the quad is, and the hip flexor, so that's going to hook right into each other. I'm not going straight across, right? I'm going to put that one first, and then I'm going to follow the flow of the other leg, the other muscle in that other direction, right? So again, this one, following that flow like differently. Yeah, I hadn't done that before with the creature, so I had a lot of fun with that. Again, always before you start scales and stuff like that, make sure your anatomy and stuff like that is to a point where you like it, because after you do the scales, it's very hard to change your anatomy and to sculpt it and everything like that. So I really try to take my sculpt in every case when I'm doing any sort of detail, taking your sculpt to a very far level. I taught some classes at Think Tank, and one thing I noticed, I mean, myself included, a lot of people are kind of like this. We will do a sculpt and we won't take it very far. We'll just get excited to put those details in. Everyone's the same way. And important to slow down and just be like, okay, this sculpt needs to be really good to hold those details, and you're going to get a better result. It's very, very noticeable when someone has just done a base quick sculpt, and then they just throw texture XYZ on there, and to the untrained eye, people are like, "Whoa, it looks really cool." And with people that know, you know, I've been sculpting for a long time, can see, okay, well, you just did a really quick like base sculpt almost, and then you just threw texture XYZ on there, and yeah, it's good to just focus on on the anatomy. Become an anatomy nerd. Learn about it, and it gets to be a lot of fun. I mean, that's the thing with anatomy. You can just study it forever. I mean, I've been studying it for a long time, and it's still has so much to learn. You see some artists out there that are just incredible, like with anatomy, and still they're learning. Like it's endless, right? Really cool. So, again, same thing with this foot. Doing the same thing, following ostrich feet and cassowary feet, I believe. Crocodile legs, crocodile feet. Again, following the flow. Now, you think I'm done? Not even close. Gotta mask out each individual thing. So funny. It was a lot of fun, honestly. I had a lot of fun doing it. Like, just so meditative and cool seeing it come together too, right? Like, really cool seeing those scales kind of look like crap at first. I mean, they don't look like crap, but they're like nothing special. But then you pull them out and you make them overlap, and it's like all of a sudden it really comes alive. That is the key for these ones. Having those scales overlap each other, so it's like you really get to see this, like, you really get to feel that if you run your hand along this thing, you'll feel ridges and bumps, rather than just like this kind of surface level details, which is what you get with alphas. You don't get overhangs with alphas, unless they're VDMs, which are a whole other thing. But yeah, I do have that dragon brush that's all VDMs. That does actually do a good job with this stuff, but not this type of scales. I probably could make one for these type of scales, but these ones are just so interlocking and they need to be so tight with one another that like you wouldn't really want to drag it on. You'd want to do it by hand. Honestly, you'd want to do it by hand. And you want to make them slightly different, you know? You don't want to make them perfect. That's why I'm doing each one of those by hand. So there's like little fuck ups in my hand will actually carry through with the model, which is good. You want it to be fucked up. Nothing is perfect, right? Yeah. The tail. Oh god, that took a long time. So then masking out, doing the overhangs here. All the way through. And then pulling it out. And then, why is that out very Canadian there? I guess I am Canadian. I'm asking the other ones now. Pulling those, and then the tip of the tail, getting those hooks out there. So it's a little bit fast there, but yeah, that's what I'm doing. Yeah, shoulder blades, pulling those guys. So with this masking stuff, I gotta tilt the camera around so much, so it's like, you gotta make sure that you're pulling it from the right angles. That's why it's like all sporadic there, but yeah, I mean, you get the idea. Yeah, again, those scales, making sure that they're nice and clean. See, it's really starting to come to life now, right? Like when you see it before, you're like, okay, you just blocked out some scales, cool. And then just those two techniques used together, it turns out to be really cool. Like the overhanging and you really feel like they're a part of an organic thing, like a real creature, you know? That's the key. Because before it didn't feel real. It's like, okay, it's just like a damn standard little scale thing. And then you make some like kind of flaring out more. Like I think on the tail here, I do some that are really flared out. Yeah, exactly, see like that. The Crocs have that on their tail, but on the tip of it and on the sides, I think. Yeah. So much fun. Working on this guy was so much fun, and I wanted to give him like a needle, like a needle tail with like a sting, like a stinger on the end of it, or something like that. Pretty kind of cool. So that's what I gave him. The cool thing about making a creature is that, yes, I try to base it on reality a little bit, like as much as I can, with being as creative as I can. But then, like, if you have a weird idea, just fucking do it, you know? As long as it doesn't seem too outlandish. I mean, even if it does, it doesn't matter, it's your creation. You do whatever the fuck you want. And give them, you know, I can do whatever I want to this guy. I could give him, like, another set of arms. I mean, it wouldn't, I would lose reality, but it would look cool, maybe, who knows? Yep, masking, pulling those scales down. Again, that's just using move tool, and then just like using a little bit of clay buildup just to finish that edge and make it look more natural. I don't think I have it included in these recordings, but because I had a crazy big Zbrush crash, and then I lost like hours and hours, like actually like a day of like recordings. Yeah, it's the only annoying thing with recording with Zbrush. But yeah, I was doing a lot of the details on the scales. So after I'm done this, then I did one more pass of details. So going on with the soft forms brush and with clay buildup, and just putting on like some details onto the scales. Then I used some alphas as well, some scratches and some like skin flakes and stuff like that. So it was pretty fun. Yeah, I'm trying to take shortcuts too, because I'm like, oh man, I want to be done this thing. But at the same time, it's just a lot of fun too. I'm like, I think I ended up skipping a couple parts, like maybe the inside of the leg or something like that. Because some areas wouldn't be as overhanged as others. I wanted to have that feeling too, right? I wanted to have it be somewhere more aggressive, somewhere less aggressive. So I think the back of the leg had been really aggressive. Like the scales are shooting way off of the back of the leg. I think you'll see here soon. Yeah. It is actually kind of cool watching these videos again and thinking about what I was thinking about when I was making it, because it's kind of a trip actually. Like, it's cool because I can recall what I was thinking, but I wouldn't be able to recall without seeing these videos. So it is cool to see. Yeah, trying to keep those diamond forms and having one peak of the scale, and so it's not like both. In some of these cases, I was doing both corners are going to be pulled down, but a lot of cases I would pick one peak here. I'm picking one peak and pulling that down. So the bottom corner, and then these guys here, I think I started shooting them way off the back of the heel, which gave a really cool result. I think we'll see in a second here. And these guys here, yeah, I'm shooting them way off. Yeah, and then that one goes way off. Yeah. Gives a cool result. If it's a swimming creature and it's going to use his back legs to kick and paddle, then I want to have some big long, you know, like a paddle there basically, like a big phalange coming off. Is that a word? I don't know. Maybe it is a word. Phalange. It feels like an airplane thing. I'm using that word completely wrong. That's okay. Everything are phalanges. There's no phalanges. It's a new word. It's a new sculpting word. We have to use it all the time now. Yep, masking. This foot took a long time. So much there. Gah. Yeah. Yep, same thing, masking, soft forms brush, and then pulling it down with move tool. Yeah, I mean, nothing much to say here. Let's just watch. It's just the same thing. So it tumbles around so fast there because I have to make sure it looks good from all angles. So that's why I'm like pulling it out and then I'm rotating the camera, pulling it out, and then making sure it's not too high or too low. So then you have to have it just sitting in the middle, right? If you can understand, I think I'm explaining that correctly, but yeah. It's like you got to make sure that you're not just like yanking it out into like y-axis too much. It's got to be like flushly kind of sitting over the other one. So yeah. And then I think I use some alphas on the bottom of the foot again. Or maybe I don't. Maybe I do this all by hand. We'll soon find out. I can't remember. And so I want to say again, I'm referencing so much. I'm not really just thinking this up, referencing a lot. Bird feet here, like lots of bird feet. Cassowaries and ostriches, mainly, and emus. Crocodiles, but just reference. That's how you do something that makes Jesus, I can't talk. That's how you make something that looks real. You have to reference a lot. Not saying this guy looks real or nothing, but like, I mean, it's very fantasy still, but it does have believability in some way, right? The scales look like they belong to creatures that live on Earth, and they have thought behind them. They're not just throwing these scales on there and using an alpha and then just like putting it on there. It is quicker and it is faster to do. You know, I'm using alphas here because I can blend those in with those other ones, right? And I kind of wanted the sporadic look on the bottom of the feet. If you look at birds' feet, it kind of is like that. So I figured out those alphas are actually going to be pretty good. Now I'm going to go over and kind of blend real scales in with those alphas to make it kind of paired together nicely. Oh, tail, oh my god. I remember doing like the first half of the tail. I was like, oh god, that took like 4 hours. And it was like, keep going. Okay, now just, once you get the hang of this stuff, it's like usually one big scale here. So that's like the tail, like ridges, those scales there on the sides. And then it splits off into like wrinkles. So there'll be like wrinkles happening with scales around them. So usually like I think get like halves, or even like there'd be like 3 scales for that one big one, and then those wrinkles will form down and then shoot off into like separate compartments. On the neck, it showed a pretty good example of that too. Here, like everywhere, it's like it just, that's how it is. It's like that one big scale, and then that'll branch off into 3 or 2 compartments, and like you can see it there, right? So yeah, it is interesting. Just look at crocodiles. I'll add images here. That's how it is for them. And I didn't reference other lizards for that stuff. I know that a lot of other lizards don't have big scales like crocodiles do. Like if you think of like iguanas and goannas and stuff like that, they have basically just small scales, like these small ones all over their whole body. Yeah. Also like the skink family, it's got a lot of really cool scale patterns. Like bearded dragons and stuff like that too. Pretty cool. Yeah, iguanas actually on the face have pretty interesting patterns as well, but their bodies are usually smaller scales. They do flow very well, those. There's a guy online, I can't remember his name, he's doing really amazing iguana / dragon right now. Yeah, now I'm just gonna put on these like neck frill things. I was like, yeah, that'll look cool. And I like it. Put them in there. You know what you'd want to do actually, I just got ahead of myself here, but what you'd want, I think I redid them eventually, is you'd want to sculpt one first, UV and everything like that, then you want to place them on. This tongue, being lazy. Oh, the roof of the mouth. Yeah, that's always. I always liked doing the roof of the mouth. I don't know why. The inside of the mouth is always a fun time. I think I put another double row of teeth there too. I decided to give him like lips, like kind of like just weird flapping over lips. But anyways, I think that's the end of the sculpt pretty much here.